It is indeed a privilege to be talking to young students, and I must thank the principal, Ms. Raha, the communication team who were after me and persistently talking to me and in fact educating me and guiding me at every step on how I should go about on a TED Talks. Thanks a lot for this. This topic is about fail forward. And I must tell you that all the work that we have done has been about children who have failed and who moved forward. Even as I talk to you, I remember the story of a young girl who came to me. She is seeking shelter. She walked all night going through fields for about 5 kilometers. And when she reached us early in the morning at 6 o'clock, she said, I need to be rescued. And she said she was going to get married that morning, and she didn't want to get married. She was barely 11 years old. This was quite scary because I didn't want girls to run away from home, leave their parents, leave their families. So I said, please get back to your house. You need your family. So she only pointed out to the board that we had and said, you are a child rights organization. You close down your organization if you're not able to save me. That really awakened us, and we said that no matter what, if a child exercises agency, if a child takes courage to get out of her exploitation, her suffering, then we cannot say we will not help you. So we took her with us, we embraced her. She's now a teacher, and she's gone back to her family, and we have worked hard to see that she's not away from her family. This is just one of the many failures that have become successes. And in fact, I will also narrate two very recent stories. So what we are about is, we are talking about those who are out of school. We are talking about those who are school dropouts. We are talking about those who have not had the privilege you and me have had of going to school. I still remember about my own self that we come from a family that is heavily endowed with social capital, with cultural capital, and at no time I had the option of saying, I will not go to school. And at no time did my parents say, you can drop out of school. Or say that, look, you can't give excuses, they said. You have to go to school no matter what. But these children are different. They have no kind of support systems to say that they don't want to go to school. This is a story of Parmesh. He met me just 2 weeks ago, and I thought I should mention him to you. He was a bonded laborer. He wanted to go to school. And even when he was not in school, he would buy a school uniform on Dasara to wear that, to feel like other children in his neighborhood who went to school. We kind of spotted him when he was 14-year-old and put him a bridge course, which I will not talk in detail, but just to prepare these children to go to regular school. So the failure and then their grit, their determination to go to regular school, that boy came the other day to say that he did his PhD in geology. It wasn't easy. Even after he came to us, he struggled every moment of his life. It was not easy for him to complete intermediate, to do BSc, to do MSc, to do PhD, because he just couldn't afford the fee. He would work morning, he would work night, and continued his education. And he's such a proud boy now, saying, I have done my PhD. His parents are proud too. The other girl here is Ramya. And I must tell you that she's again an orphan. Her father passed away. Her mother was very ill and she could not take care of her, so she was handed over to her aunt. She lived very closely in the slum that Maritpalli that we found her. She was almost going to be a rag picker and also at the same time work as a domestic child laborer. That girl now has become a nurse in the Rainbow Hospital. She takes care of her younger sister, her younger brother, and she decided that nobody in her family would work and they would all go to school. Again, this is the journey of from failure to success, from real grit and determination. There are millions of children in this country today who are not going to schools. Many of them are working on bricks, construction sites, farm work, embroidery, gem cutting, name it. They are everywhere. In fact, we unsee them. Each day, even when I travel, say long distance right now from Secunderabad to CHIREC, I'm forever looking at the streets, looking at who are they on the streets. Normally, one would look at which new cars have come perhaps, which new scooters have come, or what is blocking our way. But then I look at those whom we don't see, the laborers, the women, those who are at the traffic lights, children who are selling balloons, children who are unkempt for, children who are in the hotels, helping in chai. So, we unsee so many children. And that is not to blame you and me. That is to say that we are caught up in our own speed of the kind of structural environment that we are in, that we are just not able to skip our orbits to look at others. Because this is my profession, to look at others, I do it. But otherwise, maybe I will also not do it. And we find that the kind of work they do gives them headaches, gives them body pains. In fact, those who do embroidery and zari work, their neck is down all the time, and they really complain of not able to see. Those who do beadi rolling are again saying that they cannot breathe. And there are children who pack biscuits. They smell vanilla and chocolate every other day. What they dislike most are biscuits, chocolates, and vanilla. So these are the kinds of children whom we unsee. There are millions of them in this country, and they all need a second chance. They all need a way to get back into the education system. They all need equality. They all need justice. We cannot just give up on them, and that is what we have done, giving them a second chance in their life. Again, from failure to success. They will never fail. They will always succeed, but they have to be given the opportunities to do so.
Yeah.
What is it that does not enable them to succeed?
Yeah.
What is it that keeps them out of school? What is it that keeps them in work? I think these are very important questions that we have to ask. And here I would look at the first thing is that there is lack of social norm in society that children are out of school. We are not shocked. There is no outrage that why is this girl begging and knocking at our car window every day saying, you buy this. What, of course, some of us feel guilty. We want to put our eye the other way around. We also thank God we are not like her. It is her karma. Somehow we feel very helpless also. I mean, this is how I felt. So, you feel helpless. You don't know what to do. And you brush away and quickly go into other images and somewhere tuck her behind because you feel you can do nothing. But then you also feel that, why must I do? I was not the cause for what she is. So in a way, there is no shock, there is no outrage, there is a lack of social norm that supports a child going to school, supports a child studying. So what one has done is that to build a social norm through preparing people, not in giving up on them. Usually there is a feeling that the government school teachers don't teach. They don't come regularly. So you stereotype a government school teacher. But we said no. The teacher must become a partner in protecting children's rights. We can't give up on the teacher. So we had worked with teachers, about 3,000 school teachers. We made them defenders of children's rights and get children to school. There was one teacher, I wouldn't want to name him, he used to subcontract his work. And he would do his own farming. After we kept relentlessly talking to him, he decided that he will not do that and brought the boy whom he engaged as bonded labor into his classroom. He prepared that boy within 4 months to 6th grade. And in one of the meetings I had with the school teachers, you know what he said? I go every Friday to bhajans. I never saw God, but this boy made me realize God. I saw it was a divine experience. He said it in Telugu, na divyanubhuti, that you made me discover God. He told me when he said this boy made me discover. So if I had given up on that teacher, then this transformation would not have happened. Even employers. Normally employers are the bad people. No, they are the villains. Here too we said we cannot give up on them. If I am good, if I have a sense of morality, why is it that other human beings cannot be like me? I don't have a monopoly of goodness. Each person has something good in them. So we would talk to the employers. And of course there was opposition, but we put aside the opposition and we tried to discover something that can move them. In a way, when we did that, we made it public that this particular landlord has sponsored the child of the education whom he was employing. So in a way, we in fact had Vidyadan ceremonies where the employers were garlanded by the boys whom they engaged, and the employers gave them pencil school bag and said that I will sponsor your education. What if he did not do this? What if he gave up on the employers? Then this transformation could not have happened. This is a story of parents too. Normally we all have a feeling that parents don't care. But as school teachers, who you're dealing with parents every other day, you know that if there is anybody who cares, it is the parents. And these are not parents only of the poor, of the rich. Poor parents too are like our parents and whom we deal with every day. When children were in work, they didn't take care of their children. It was quite surprising. They also treated their children like how an employer would treat their children. Go to work. Why are you wasting time? But when they found that the child was going to school, they changed. I'll just give you an example. We were working in Vijayanagaram, in the hills of Vijayanagaram, in the deep tribal areas. This girl finished her school. She was in 7th grade. We had a huge ceremony of celebrating education. And all the girls came in pink skirts, white checkered blouses, red ribbons. They were all there. They were this couple searching for their daughter because all of them looked alike. So while I was talking like this, the parents just came, grabbed the mic and said, Lakshmi, where are you, Lakshmi? We've come for you. And from the crowd, you find this girl just emerges. Smart girl. A girl in a skirt and blouse. And you must see what I saw was so moving. The father just broke to tears. And the mother was so happy. She came running and they hugged. I'm sure they never hugged before. And then the woman had something in her palo hiding. I went to her and asked her, what did you bring? She was shy. Then I opened it. It was a pair of salwar kameez. Imagine this girl in the tribal area who wore only a langa and a small pallu, no blouse also, and the parent has decided, she is my proud daughter. I will see her that she studies. I will do anything to get her to go school. And this is something which I thought was so transformatory. When children become children, parents become parents. And we found villages became villages, panchayats became panchayats, teachers became teachers, schools became schools, all because we trusted them, all because we had a dialogue and debate, all because we did not stereotype them, all because we said that you too can be partners in change. Oh, it's just moved on. 1 second. Next reason I would think is that there is no child rights approach. This is a very important thing. I think this is something that I always say about the system. In the system, when they make policies, they also always say that they will not be able to do more than what they did because children are poor and they can't come to school. They say that instead of them coming to school, we'll set up night schools for them. That was a time in 1990s, you know. Imagine saying that children will have to work because they are poor, and that because they can't come to school, we'll set up Ratri Patashala, night schools. Can there be anything more unjust than this? This was true for girls as well as for boys. And they had syllabus, they had curriculum, they had a whole department in NCERT for non-formal education program in the country. We worked hard, we engaged with the government at the center, we engaged with the government at the state. When I say we, I say many of the networks of NGOs who are working on children's rights, and said this is not on. Children have to go to full-time formal day schools like your child, my child, and you must make it possible. You know, that was one thing. The other thing they always said was, no, we can't disturb the tradition and culture. They are doing weaving. What will happen to all the great saris that we have, the weaving, that skill, that tradition is gone. So we had to tell them, look, there is always new tradition, new culture. Traditions and culture are never frozen in history. Have not all of us moved away from tradition to define traditions, re-articulate traditions to suit the current context? Why must this be frozen for children? If you want to so protect tradition, find other ways, not get children into exploitation. What we found was it was child labor that causes poverty. When we removed millions of children from work, thousands really, and got many villages child labor free, we found that the wages for women went up. Girls were working at 5 rupees a day, and we found that when they were removed from work, women demanded better wages because of scarcity of wage, and they got 50 to 60 rupees a day. In fact, child labor, children are employed because they are cheap, because market wants them, not so much the parents. And when we made a study, we found that the quality of life in the family improved when children are not working. I mentioned to you about the biscuit factory. When children were removed from biscuit factory, you know what happened? Packing machines came. Because employing adults was unaffordable. So technology also, we found, maybe improves when you remove the last form of labor force. Why do mixies come? Why do washing machines come? Why do dishwashers come? I sometimes think maybe they come because employing women becomes unaffordable. One of the reasons for changes in technology on our home front could be because of unemployability, unaffordability of labor. I may be right, I may be wrong, but that's how I believe. And of course, it improves quality of life for the poor. And poor are willing to make enormous sacrifices to send their children to school. They want children to go to school. They want them to study. They want them to be like you and me. Then, of course, the last is, I would think, because it is their right, they have to be given everything, but we know how unequal education system is. In fact, schools anywhere in the world have bridged inequality. They have brought rich and poor into the same school. Schools have democratized societies. You look at schools in Japan, you look at schools in South Korea, you look at schools in Europe, you look at schools in America when they began. They had rich and poor, all classes of children in the same school. And in fact, they brought the spirit of equality and democracy in society. It was schools that were instruments for democracy and equality. Unfortunately, in our country, schools reflect social hierarchies. Schools are reflections of inequality. And poor children go to poor schools. If you're better off, you go to a better off school. Right now, of course, the trend has been even more pathetic. As I told you, parents want to send their children to school and they find nothing happening in school. You see everyday headlines. The children are not learning. They're not able to read and write. It's not the failure of the child that he is not able to read and write. We showed through our bridge courses that within 1 year, a child can learn English, mathematics, Telugu, Hindi within 1 year and get into a class appropriate to the age. Children can learn. I'm sure schools like you know that there's no way a child cannot learn. Any child can learn at any time in their lives. But somehow we have given up on this and we've decided children cannot learn and that children are not learning. So instead of saying that there is a systemic failure, there are no toilets, there are no classrooms, there are no teachers. In Telangana itself, there are some 5,400 schools with only one teacher. Some 85,000 children go to the school. Is that a school at all? So, you know, somewhere there is a systemic failure and we cannot blame it on the parents. We cannot blame it on the poverty. We cannot blame it on their children. We will have to make sure that schools run, that public schools run, that education is a public good, that it has to be for all. It is a right of the child. I might give you a small definition of what a right is. A right is based on the principle of equality. If there is no equality, there is no right. A right is based on the principle of universality, where all children are embraced. The Dalit, the Adivasi, the BCs, the Muslims, the minority communities, girls, the disabled persons, all of them are embraced. If all are not embraced, then that right is not being enjoyed. And right has to be protected not by CHIREC school, not by NGOs. It has to be protected by the government, by the system, because it is a state's obligation. It is a constitutional obligation to protect children's rights. So, my dear friends, I thought I might tell you that there are so many children waiting to come into mainstream. They want dreams, they have aspirations. They can come given a chance, given an opportunity. And if there is a need to have pride in our country, that pride can come only when children are in schools, when all children are learning, when this room is filled with all those children who were unseen and who have become visible by listening to me, by listening to you, and where we embrace everyone. Then I think children grow up with self-esteem, with confidence as true citizens, and our country will be truly democratic. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.